Welcome to Practicing Life podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Pitzer. Today's episode is on codependency and specifically over the idea of being responsible for another person's feelings. This is something I see a lot of, especially in the coaching world, and also as someone who this is an area I had to work on in my own life. So I always use my own instances. But I formerly was a person who used to think that I was responsible for my kids' happiness. I thought I was responsible for making my husband happy. And really, a lot of people have this belief system. And whether they know it or not, it is a codependency type of relationship. And one of the things that I now work on helping other people to do is primarily being responsible for their own feelings. So, in my book that I wrote, my fantasy book that I wrote for teenagers, one of the things that I was writing in my story was teaching people that you can't be responsible for another person's emotions. You legitimately cannot be happy for another person's emotions. I mean, you cannot crawl into somebody's head and rearrange their thoughts and help them choose an emotion. But yet, we are often taught in society, culturally, that we should, do X, Y, and Z to make another person happy. Now, there are ways that you can make people happy. So the idea that you can't make someone happy, I mean, that is not what I'm talking about. For instance, you can give someone a gift that you know that they really want, and you have an idea, possibly even expectation, which I don't like expectations, but you have an idea that this would make them happy. They've expressed that they would make them happy, and you give them the gift and they're happy. Like, wow, wonderful treat for you, for both of you. Both people get rewarded in that situation because the gift giver receives maybe joy from seeing the other person happy. The person receiving the gift can be happy. That is not what I'm talking about here. I am talking about codependency as in defined as a pattern of behavior in which one person supports or another enables another person to do X, Y, and Z. And this can be supporting bad habits, contributing to their bad habits. Like, as a parent, when you don't let your child experience the consequences, that is codependency. So it can be for being irresponsible, like them never taking responsibility for their actions. It can be for underachievement and always making sure that they win. This is a codependency type of relationship. When you are in a romantic relationship, an example from my own past history is that, like, if my husband was angry, I would take responsibility of making sure the environment, the kids were quiet, the house was clean, right? I was controlling all of these external forces so that he wouldn't be, triggered, as we say in the world now, so that he wouldn't get angry. And I was taking responsibility and adding burdens onto my life in order to potentially control how another person reacts in a situation. And this is a codependency type of relationship. So often boundaries are not respected. So let's talk about boundaries in this. Boundaries is when you identify something that you need in your life. Often it is around values. So when you get really upset in your personal life, it's generally around two things. One, your values are getting rubbed up against. And another reason that you can get really upset is that you are resentful, meaning like something is happening to you that is maybe injustice, taking advantage of you. It's causing a reaction within you that has built up over time, and so your patience has run out. Right. So these are two very common reasons that people get upset. Values have been rubbed up against, or resentment is there. And in a codependency relationship, those are going to be two things that you experience quite often. Why? Because as the person who is enabling somebody else, you can't control another person. There are things that you can do to aid. One of the things that we say in coaching is that, if someone is, let's say someone is very upset and going through a hard time, you can hand them the Kleenexes to blow their nose and to wipe their eyes, and you can pat them on the back and you can give them a hug and you can be that listener, right? That is a healthy boundary there. But when you start saying, oh my gosh, you're upset, I need to go fix something for this other person so that they're no longer upset. I need to come in and be the knight in shining hero for all of those that have savior complex. When you start getting into fixing mode, you are now entering in a codependency relationship. And if you have a pattern of doing this, then this is where resentment starts to build up. So if you think that you can make somebody happy and you start taking responsibility for their happiness, you are actually disempowering the other person. You are lacking trust and showing that trust doesn't exist within that relationship. You're not trusting the other person to be able to handle their situation. As a parent, I did this. I thought that it was my job to make my child happy. And so when my child was having a difficult day, or maybe they didn't want to face something, like I was jumping in like a helicopter mom and trying to fix things. But fixing things don't happen in the long term. So what you might get is a short-term band-aid. You might be able to jump in and make something go smoothly that wasn't going smoothly before, but in the long run, you're teaching your child, as a parent in this case, I was teaching my child not to work through their own emotions, not to be able to handle that life isn't always peachy perfect and fair. Like I wasn't allowing them to have these little moments. I wasn't trusting them to be able to figure it out. I wasn't empowering my child to be able to figure it out. So that is like an instance that I can explain to you from a parent-child relationship. In your personal life, you probably can step back and list a number of people in your life that you are maybe taking responsibility for or not honoring those boundaries. So going back to that word boundary again, boundaries are what you need in order to support you. And often in a codependency relationship, you're going to get into a situation where you have to make a choice. The choice is to either respect your boundary and enforce it and deal with the other person's discomfort, or jump in and be that fixer and get into that codependency relationship and then suffer the long-term consequences of maybe experiencing resentment or frustration because you had to do X, Y, Z. Like you're always the one that has to do these things. So I'm going to leave you with that today, just because I have a child at home today. But I want you to look back at all of your relationships and see what it is in your life where you're jumping into fixing something. And I want to challenge you to step back and not fix it and sit with the discomfort and see how that is for you. All right, until next time, you matter.